Hey, perfect. Should be able to, are you able to see my screen now? Oop, maybe.
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Well, I want to start off with saying thank you to WeFunder. Been fantastic opportunity on the platform, and thanks for hosting the Discovery event today. And thanks for joining us, Peter. I look forward to your questions after the pitch. I also know that there's a number of folks on here that are listening in that might already be investors. But for folks that haven't heard me before, I'm going to start with the genesis of the company. So Pirouette was actually started by three rocket scientist co-founders coming from a high reliability, highly technical industry to drug delivery, which is also a high reliability, highly technical industry. So the transition has been a lot of fun. We all had personal connections as well to this space. So I have a brother that carried an EpiPen when I was younger, and I got to see up close and personal the fear and anxiety associated with potentially having to use a device like that. One of my co-founders, Eli, also talks about going to the doctor's office with his brother and seeing multiple adults have to hold his brother down just to receive a simple vaccine when they were children. So, we all are touched by injectables from the time, we're born to the time we're adults. And I was finishing up my PhD and just happened to come across an article about a child that was exposed to an allergen, didn't receive a life-saving dose of epinephrine in time, and unfortunately passed away. I immediately thought about my brother, and I realized when I started to dig into it that these technologies really haven't changed in a long, long time. I often say, it's a dinosaur industry that hasn't evolved in over 50 years. And I think, today we really tried to understand what that problem was. And I tend to boil it down to three main things. Portability. These are all typically pen-shaped devices that are really built around a typical syringe-type delivery system. They're bulky, they're hard to carry around. I often joke, maybe if you had a really tall hat, it would make it easier. Then the next piece that we looked at was affordability. There's a huge cry in terms of the price increases that have been seen in this space. I think the EpiPen is a really well-known example of a drug delivery system that's seen price increases over time. Another one that we're going to talk a little bit about is naloxone in the opioid overdose space. Going on for pricing, we realized that the big problem that hadn't been solved that really needed to be solved was usability. We went and did a study with one of our advisors, is board certified allergist, and with 370 patients, these individuals having previously been trained on how to use these devices, 14% of those folks literally wouldn't even attempt an injection. And again, that's a simulated injection. There was no needle. Out of those individuals, again, that are being asked to perform an injection, 30% of those would have resulted in an incorrect injection, typically a laceration, where the device is actually sliding relative to the injection site because of a big swinging stabbing motion, or an accidental injection where the user removes the safety cover and thinks, oh, just like a pen, the business or pointy end must be under there. They swing and stab and they actually get a needle into their thumb. So it's a really scary scenario and often drives significant costs for payers who are paying the upfront costs for buying the device when you're going to the pharmacy, but they're ultimately also covering the cost of downstream effects like a laceration that's requiring an ER visit, an accidental injection where you're injecting in thumb. So total patient cost ends up being a huge problem on top of the original affordability, and usability is what's really driving this. Today's options, as you see on the slide, are really just complex and anxiety inducing, and that starts all the way from a syringe up through the existing injection systems that are available today. And what that leads to is an 88% in the epinephrine space, as an example, 88% of folks who are prescribed these devices ultimately don't go on to purchase the device, whether it's because they know, hey, I'm in that group that's not going to even attempt to use it, or I'm in the group that's going to use it incorrectly, or I'm having to decide between food on the table or a life-saving medical device. And ultimately, that's a really difficult decision for families. So we started from a blank sheet. We started honestly from what we like to call the blank whiteboard as engineering founders. And we sat there and we said, rather than taking the typical syringe and trying to design a new injection system around that, which has been done over and over and over again, let's start with the patient and let's build something that would be useful and intuitive for them. And then let's figure out how to build the internals in order to accomplish that external experience. And then pair on top of that a 1-2 punch, better device, and affordable price. So Honestly, the best way to demonstrate that is, and I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen to make my screen a little bit bigger. So hopefully you can see me here in the center. So this is our device. So you saw it on the first screen. It's a disc-shaped device in comparison to the typical pen-shaped injection systems. That lends itself to a lot of usability benefits, portability benefits, and then thinking about kind of our cost of goods, we really drive a significant affordability as well. In the epinephrine space, as an example, some of these devices like an EpiPen can be upwards of $650 for a 2-pack. Ours is targeted to be less than $100, which is really exciting for patients. And in terms of that total patient cost, usability can drive away any of these other adverse events. And how that's done is with performing injection, the user simply removes the device from the safety cover, simple lefty-loosey. At that point, you apply it to the injection site. It actually has a medical grade adhesive. It holds itself on the injection site. And to perform an injection, I'll turn here so you can see it really well. To perform an injection, you simply push down. You probably heard that click. At that point, the injection is actually over. And to complete the injection, you simply let go. The device automatically popped back up on its own there, locked out, became its own little sharps container. And you have a lot of features on there that are telling you the injection is complete. So here's a version before it's used. Here's a version after. Again, giving you kind of the portability aspect. Here it is versus like a cell phone, so you can get a good idea of relative size, and here it is versus an existing device. Based on that technology, we went out and surveyed close to 1,000 individuals. 93% of those potential patients and users wanted to switch to using our device right away, and that was just based on seeing a visual demonstration. 70% of prescribers wanted to switch to prescribing our device immediately. Let me share my screen again before I keep going and think that you guys are following along with the slides with me. There we go.
I think we might have to cut it short soon. I can let you go for like another 30 seconds, but
Perfect.
yeah.
And epinephrine and naloxone are the first two flagship products, but it doesn't stop there. This is actually now over an $800 billion industry for injectable medication. We look to be on the market by 2027. The other big thing I wanted to focus to hit on is we actually just won the 2024 Product of the Year in New Hampshire, which was a really exciting competition. Yeah, would really love for anybody interested to reach out and join our round. We're closing soon, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Thank you, Connor. Can you talk a little bit about your regulatory pathway, where you're at in it, what the pathway is, where you're in and at it, and when you anticipate finishing?
Absolutely. In terms of regulatory pathway, our product, it has the drug already included in the device, so it's considered a combo product, device plus drug. We're actually regulated by CDER, so on the drug side, and the pathway is what's called a 505(b)(2) application. So because there's no novelty on the drug product, it's only on the device side, you're really just demonstrating device performance. So it is a great pathway for that. We've already had multiple pre-submission meetings with the FDA. We're actually gearing up for follow-on. So those were type B meetings. We're actually gearing up right now for a follow-on type C meeting. Ultimately, both of these products moving forward, one is for prescription, the epinephrine device, and the other one we're targeting for over-the-counter. So a direct to OTC application for naloxone, and where access and availability is the most important. In terms of timing, we're looking to receive approval and be on the market by 2027 as our current conservative estimate, and we're trying to accelerate that everywhere we can.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about why you're starting with those two drugs?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think epinephrine kind of makes sense because there's a direct replacement there, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem at all. So one of the things that's really nice for us is because this is applicable as what we call kind of the iPhone 1 generation of our device, there's multiple other functionalities we can pair with in the future, but this version is very well suited for both of those markets. They're both emergency use markets, which has the highest bar in terms of regulatory requirement for reliability. So it's starting with the most difficult case, which then makes it really easy for us to apply these to other applications like a vaccine or a GLP-1 for obesity. At the same time, both of these markets are very highly visible markets. If you don't know anything about drug delivery, you've heard of an EpiPen. If you've never heard about anything about drug delivery, you know about today's opioid overdose epidemic that's killing almost 300 Americans every day. So they're very visible markets where the regulatory hurdles are streamlined. the market is highly visible and the benefit that we can provide is significant. And so downstream, when we're looking to partner with additional pharmaceuticals that have a drug product and want a competitive advantage, they're able to see that demonstrated value add in those markets. And again, it's something that not just industry professionals will see, but this is something that will be ubiquitous across the culture.
I apologize for my ignorance here. How much of the EpiPen's cost is the actual device versus the medication?
So the actual medication is much smaller than the device. Yeah, so the medication in general, you know, and similar for us, we build the drug product into our supply chain, and we actually formulate and fill finish with one of our partners and integrate that right into the device. Ultimately, you know, what you're really pairing, why you're really pairing that with a device versus a syringe is not from a cost perspective, but from that usability perspective. And what we've demonstrated is that really hasn't been successful in the past. And so our goal and our job is to bring it in an affordable manner to these patients, but also do it in a way where we're actually delivering what's required, which is a system that can be used correctly the first time, every time.
Yep, makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about how you see kind of the company progressing over time, if that makes sense? I mean, a lot of medical device related companies do a lot of R&D, get regulatory approval, and then sell to a larger player, whereas others will pursue more of a sales and marketing initiative and build the business that way. I'm curious how you guys think about how you're positioning the company.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're really working every day to build as much value in the company as possible. And in terms of the future, it's really focused on building a big successful company that can help a lot of people. And so, you know, I kind of alluded to this being iPhone 1 generation of device, but we're really excited about building those follow-on generations and being able to offer additional drug products with those types of technologies and building out, you know, exit opportunities in each market rather than one single exit opportunity on our first device, you know, our first combo product right after FDA approval. So it's a much broader vision than, you know, a single opportunity in a single market. And I think, you know, that plays into how unique we are as a platform system. And you know, that's not always the case, right? Because one of the markets we're going into, naloxone as an example, the major player today is a nasal spray. But if you try and take that to another market, you're talking about reformulation of that next drug. For us, we were able to sweep across markets because there's no reformulation needed. The delivery system is built on the same mechanism that these drug products are developed, which is all typically sub-Q to intramuscular. So for us, it's very easy to go through that scaling process, and therefore it's beneficial for the company to be able to target opportunities in every single market that we can attack.
No, that's super helpful. And so as you think about that, how do you think about your kind of the go-to-market strategy for this in the next couple of years once you have regulatory approval?
Absolutely. So for these first products, the intention is not to build out sales and marketing on our own, especially in any large capacity. The goal right now is to work with wholesale distributors in order to be able to sell the bulk of these devices. So it's nice for us because really our true customer at the end of the day is a wholesale distribution who then has their sales channels into retail pharmacy and direct to consumer. And there'll be opportunities for us to take advantage of additional pipelines or additional channels. But it is nice in that way that as a small company, there's not a requirement or a need for us in the first few products to scale that capability. But ultimately, as we continue to grow and expand our offerings, that's how we kind of see growing.
And then just last question. So you're raising, if I remember correctly, a little under $9 million. Love to understand kind of what that buys you and how you think about future funding needs and when that might occur.
Yeah, absolutely. So the target for this round is to go through regulatory approval. I think in terms of major milestones along the way, and as that's usually pretty helpful. Right now, we're building our registration batches, which are basically building the thousands of devices that are needed for final design verification and validation testing, which is all the data that then goes into our NDA for FDA approval and really builds out that timeline to 2027, as I described. So it's really not about de-risking, but in terms of executing on the data collection that the FDA wants to see. We've also built that testing capability in-house, which is really rare for a company our size to have the device development, manufacturing, and analytical testing capability. In terms of follow-on fundraising, we look forward to a Series B where, the funding from that round would be used to scale. And in terms of scale, I'm talking about kind of future generations of the device, future pairings of drug products, as well as manufacturing capability. Because as we continue to scale that product pipeline and lineup, we're going to start to have a good problem, which is we need to build more devices. And so we're going to be doing those in parallel. The idea is not to reach FDA approval and say, okay, now we can manufacture, but now we need to manufacture by the millions. Let's start to scale. We want to do that sooner than later. So that would be follow-on fundraising.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you, Connor.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate
And
the
well
time.
done.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Connor.